Okay, so this is my classics wrap up. I hope you guys don't mind another very informal outdoor while I'm cooking dinner sort of video. Sometimes it's just really all I have time for, so I hope you guys don't mind when we don't get, oh no, all the prettiness and specs and organization that comes with being indoors and filming when there's full daylight. But anyway, time for a classics wrap up. I have some books that I read. So the first classic that I actually finished all three of these this week because it was a classics week for me. So first one is Wuthering Heights. Wuthering Heights? I never did learn how to say it. Anyway, this is a story, oh boy, this is a packed story. It is a story full of unlovable people that deals with the cycle of how you're treated and the brutality and horrible nature of some people. It's a book full of people that are not just flawed, but you're not gonna like anybody in this book, or at least I don't think you should. I know that some people consider this a romance and some people consider this a revenge story. I guess my perspective on it is neither of those. I definitely don't think it's supposed to be a romance, for sure. Even though it does have a romantic ending, I don't think it's supposed to be a romance. I think truly that it's more of a window into the lives of people who come from harsh upbringings and then fall into step with that harshness with their own future. So this follows some pretty awful families, and they're specifically Heathcliff, is that his name? Specifically him. He is raised by a man who is horrible and treats him terribly. And he harbors resentment and hatred over that, understandably, but he never deals with it and finds healing, to the point that he ends up becoming the man that he hates more than anyone else in the world. And this is a story that follows those people while they lie, manipulate, and hurt each other to get their revenge and to accomplish their own means. And this is a lot of people's favorite book, and this is a lot of people's least favorite book. And I totally understand why this book has such extreme reactions from so many people. I actually went into this expecting to hate it because one of my good friends hates it, and she really hates it a lot. So I wanted to read it too and see what my perspective was going to be, because I thought I'd hate it too based off of the stuff that she told me. But I totally get people either latching on to the tragedy and the characters that put themselves in the worst positions. And I also understand people rejecting these people in this horrible, sad, tragic story. I get both sides of it. And I think right now, I don't usually rate books in videos. I usually just try to discuss, and then I'll leave my ratings for Goodreads. But here I'll go ahead and show a rating. I think right now I sit at a 4 for this book, and I want to give it a few months and then reread it now that I kind of have a better understanding of the story. I want to read it again and see what my real feelings for it are. But all in all, I am really glad I read it. I think that it's a really smart and dark novel. I find it interesting. I've only read Jane Eyre by the Bronte sisters, and now this. And I really didn't like Jane Eyre. I thought it was not romantic at all. And I find it really interesting. As far as I understand, the Bronte sisters write romance, and then you've got this one. And probably that's why so many people think this is supposed to be a romance too. But I find it very interesting that while her sisters were writing romance, Emily went to a really dark place. And I just want to sit down and get to know her a little bit. I would love to have lunch with her and just pick her brain. But anyway, I would love to keep discussing this with you guys. If this is a novel that you love, if this is a novel that you hate, please leave me a really long comment telling me your thoughts and feelings, because I think that there's a reason that this is a novel that people have such mixed feelings on, and I'm excited to reread it to really hone what my feelings truly are. Okay, I had to pop inside to check on dinner, so sorry if everything is different. Okay, so my next 2 books that I read this week, that I read this month, I don't have a lot of thoughts on, just opinions. Corey was watching a YouTube video and an advert popped up for a movie called The Invisible Man. It's a thriller and it looked really good, so I decided to check to see if it was based off of a book, because a lot of movies are, and it was, so I read the book. So it's called The Invisible Man. It's my first book by this author, who I know is kind of an iconic classic horror author, and I'm for sure going to read more of his work because I love classic horror. So I see, okay, let me tell you what this is about. So this is about a man who, how much can I give away? Because this is quite short. A man who, by circumstances, finds himself invisible of sorts and decides to wreak havoc and do terrible things because he can. There's a lot more to it than that, but it is very short, so that's all you get. Okay, so this book, it is classified as horror. I'm not sure why. Opinions. This is a really well-loved book, and I hate to be not loving it, but here I am. I see why this is going to be translated to a movie, because I think that with some liberties taken, it could be really cool. In this format, I didn't love it. It's one of those classics where you have the build-up, you have the introduction of the problem, you have the character's reaction to the problem, and then you have the last third of the book, which is nothing but the character explaining how they got where they are. And it's just like this big, long monologue. And I don't like it. And it does have a really great ending, a very interesting ending. So at least you got that. But I think that I didn't love this format of it. I know people are going to ask, are you going to watch the movie? It just depends on if I can get Corey to watch it with me. He doesn't like suspense horror stuff so much. So if he'll watch it with me, then I'd be down, because I think that the book had a really cool concept, but I just didn't like the execution. So I'd be down for seeing it executed a little bit differently. But I will be reading more from this author, because I know that he is well loved in the classic horror genre, and like I said, I love classic horror. And then the last book that I finished, I actually just finished. That's apparently a theme for me these days. Pick up the camera as soon as I finish a book. And that is Call to the Wild. And once again, I don't really have anything cool to say about it, just opinions. So this is a classic about a dog, and he ends up being ripped away from his domestic family, and he is now going to be a dog sled. Nope. Why can't I think of the name? I just finished this book. He's going to pull sleds in Alaska. Anyway, so he gets fitted with a horrible man and a pack of dogs, and it's terrible. This book is another one that's really well loved, and I totally see why. So I don't like reading books from animals' perspectives, especially not classics. Why? Because they're brutal, and animals are brutalized. It's horrible, and it always is, and they're always harmed terribly, and it's always too much detail, and I don't like it, and I don't read them. But my friend was going to read this one, and it was really short, so I was like, hey, I'll read it with you. Why not? And I regret. So I tend to not read books from animals' perspective anyway. It's just not my jam. So we're already at a disadvantage, because this just isn't my style of storytelling. And then we get the fact that the entire book is full of nothing but brutality. That's an exaggeration, but it's a whole lot. The dog is getting beaten by people, and then the dog is getting into dog fights, and the dogs are being brutalized, and everybody dies. Everybody doesn't die, but it's just sad. It's a sad book. The point is, this book had probably a really beautiful story and a really beautiful point, but I don't like reading from animals' perspective, and I don't like reading about a lot of animal brutality. And this book was so much of it, that I just didn't like it. I didn't like it. I couldn't see past the things that I didn't like enough to be able to enjoy what was good, I guess. So yeah, I don't really have a lot of great discussion around this one because it was just, I didn't like it because I didn't like it, not because it was a bad book necessarily. So, you know, feel free to chat with me about why you love this book if it's a book that you love, because that would be really cool to get another side of it. But those are the 3 classics that I read this month. I'd love to chat with you more about any and all of these. I post videos every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'll see you guys again soon.